Welcome to Bias Bash. I'm Lauren Green. Donald Trump has faced media scrutiny since he announced his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination. But now that he's the party's presumptive nominee, things are heating up even more. Bob Woodward of the Washington Post announcing the paper has assigned 20 reporters to look into every aspect of Trump's past and will be writing a book about the businessman. So, will this have any effect on Trump and the general election? Joining me with analysis is Justin Duckham, senior Washington correspondent at Talk Media News. Welcome, Justin.
Hey, great to be here.
So, is it about time they do something like this, or is it a little too late?
Well, I don't think it's too late, and I think it obviously makes a lot of sense. Trump has been very well analyzed throughout the entirety of this campaign, and it never really hurts to do some investigative digging into somebody who is now the presumptive Republican nominee. But at the same time, what we know from the past in this campaign is that this is not going to really make much of a difference. We have had a lot of reporters pulling up some very interesting factoids about Trump, some very interesting scandals that a lot of people had just kind of swept under the rug or forgot about, and we haven't really seen any impact on his candidacy. And I think that really highlights a bigger problem in the media. There's obviously a lack of trust with it, something that kind of coincides with being a Trump supporter to a large extent, since they obviously don't believe anything that the media says. And you can do all the investigative reporting that you want, but when it comes down to the basic lack of trust, that's something that needs to be solved in order for any of this to stick.
Well, as you say, a lot of these little bits of information have come out about Trump, and they've sort of been like brush fires. But when you put it in the context of a book, like everything together, doesn't sort of the collective story, outline of a book create more of a brush fire that is kind of an out-of-control place? I mean, will the book make a difference?
Well, that's presuming that anybody actually reads a political book. There's obviously been some issues there. Usually whenever we have books, we have a couple excerpts kind of making it out there, and then we have the author doing his, little media tour. But in general, most people don't really sit down and absorb that entire piece of information. But I do understand your point, and I do think once we get it all consolidated, that's obviously going to be a pretty long list. I think we're going to see some very long campaign ads, probably going a lot beyond the usual 1 minute buy to try to squeeze everything into one concise narrative. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that a lot of people just are not going to separate themselves from Trump. They're just going to believe what he says. Trump was actually pretty accurate when he said that he could actually shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any of his support. And to date, with the discovery of Trump University, with the Trump steak failure, with the Trump company's bankruptcies, nothing just seems to stick. And that's really frustrating, particularly for people in the media who believe that there is a value behind these these investigative journalist pieces.
You bring up a very interesting point, because is there a fear factor behind this assigning 20 reporters to investigate Trump? I mean, before he was sort of an entertaining distraction, but now he's pretty much going to be the GOP nominee, and perhaps he's seen more as a threat. I mean, is there a fear behind this?
I think it is to a large extent. For a while, the media was very careful to kind of laugh off all the attention that they were paying to Trump. But at this point, now that he is the presumptive nominee, there really is now a reason to apply this kind of focus to him. And it needs to start taking on a more mature tone. A lot of these sort of things that Trump have said that have been given a slide in the past are obviously going to be revisited, and I think assigning 20 reporters to him is probably a way of doing that. That may seem a little bit excessive, but again, this is a person who has not really released his tax filings, is not going to do so before the election, so he's not necessarily the most open person when it comes to dealing with the press, and I think that's something that needs to be examined.
Very interesting. All right, thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you.
You want to hear more media analysis on the week's top headlines? Catch Media Buzz with Howard Kurtz, Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern and again at 5 p.m. Eastern on the Fox News Channel. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.